whole theatrical performance scripted straight out of Hollywood. I don't know what this is, Jerry, but it does not give me the option to invite you in like it normally do. Let me try something different. Yeah, I try to save all of my lives, Chris Faith. I'm they supposed to stay in the public domain until we have results. Okay, that didn't work. Let me try something. I'm trying to find. I'm trying to find a way to invite you. Normally, I touch the picture, it give me the option. But yours didn't give me the option, and it's not coming up. Oh, oh, they're saying that you ain't a viewer right now. Chris Pharaoh, I got you. I know what that is now. Iron Bush, you trying to come back up? I can't find out how to let Zuri in and say she not on the. She said it's saying that Zuri's not watching the live, and I can't invite her. Well, look, Bobby B. Blunt, we don't know when everything gonna crash until it crashes. That's why it's called a crash, because it's a sudden event, right? I wish I did know, because then I know how much stuff I need to do clearer than figuring it out as I go, which slows me down. Yeah, the hard disclosure come one of these things. They reopened Hillary Clinton laptop case, which can trigger the exposure of the deep state tribunals. Also, the Diddler case can implicate Kamala and some other politicians that could cause the collapse on uh, uh, that could cause the collapse of the person was unable to join because of technical issues. Now that's some bullshit. I don't know what that's about, sir. Try it again. This person able to join. It's saying that you got some technical issues that won't allow you to join. Yeah, Cliff, this is the great reveal. Okay, so now you got the this other case. What's the name of that case? So Clarence Thomas is waiting to give a ruling about the disposition of the political elites in Washington that's holding office with no oath of office on record, and this could bring an end to or an exposure point for the fall of the cabal. Okay. Um, damn, what's the name of that case? It'll come to me. Another thing that's going on that could cause the exposure is this bill that they put in front of Senate and Congress last week that say in the case of the loss of 100 and more senators and congressmen that they have a continuity of government protocol in place, and they was rushed to vote on it as if it was urgently important in a message. The Brunson case, yes, that's the name of it. It's the Brunson case. So that can also trigger the revelation of the fall of the cabal, the draining of the swamp, the death of the deep state, the slaying of Babylon, whatever you want to call it. That's a powerful trigger point. Also, Bank of America, representing America's bank, is um, can also be a trigger point for exposure, right? Because we know about June they was already missing $545 billion. So as that relate to now, how much are they still missing? Did it increase? Did they recover any? And this is going to make it where the public, John Q. public, going to be like, I don't want to do business with them because they done lost $545+ billion. And when we all get on the same page, and the more of us that agree to overthrow the tyranny of this dying system, everybody on the same day abandon the contract by not going to work, no cash, no checks, don't do nothing, don't make no money move. And it'll tell you that can be a trigger point for the shock and awe disclosure. I call it shock and awe after what GW was calling their campaign in Iraq. So I wish that when I sent him the request to tell him to rotate his phone, and then it still won't let him in. So I was wondering what happened with that. Yeah. So the only way that clock could be at zero is when it's done with the corporation, because the corporation is insolvent, and the corporation has been dismantled, and assets of the corporation that we call the United States of America, that we thought was our actual and factual government, turned out to be a de facto fraud in its truest form. Fraud vitiates all contracts. The discovery of the fraud gives the chief the right to cancel the contract. And the fraud came in this case in non-performance and breach of contract by doing exactly what you agreed not to do, and that's abuse my people. So the money that they give into the foreign countries is not because they have money to give to foreign countries over the people of the land. Remember, BRICS is forcing the US dollar back by building a dam of nations that's going to go back currency to overthrow the fiat. When this is taking place, you have to understand how the economy was being floated. Inflation is the product of printing more money than you can spend. You printing it so fast you can't even spend it, but it's creating the inflation. This inflation in turn decreases the purchasing power of the day-to-day worker, and they never know that they silently and secretly being robbed in their face behind their back. Okay, so the next thing that let me see, that was about okay. So the natural disasters are called acts of God, meaning that all insurance companies can renege on paying out because acts of God is not covered under 90% of insurance policies unless you have what's called an act of God policy, that in the case that God tear your house down with a tornado, hurricane, earthquake, or tidal wave, or tsunami, or whatever, then because you bought specifically that insurance, that's the only way you can be compensated. They need to circulate fiat currency around the world in order to artificially float their system. They can't circulate it within the country and be able to float their system because they don't want the money damn back to home, because now you got water running in the White House coming over the doorstep, right? The breaches of the contract, once you discover the fraud, I mentioned this on the Larry Hoover video earlier. Once you discover the fraud, you cannot correct the fraud with paperwork because you perpetuate the fraud when you do that. The only remedy in law for the discovery of a fraud that you was unaware of before whatever said catalytic or catalyst event made you pay attention enough to see the fraud. And the only remedy is to walk away from the fraud. If you don't walk away from the fraud and you see the fraud, you are guilty in legal terms as an aid and abettor to the fraud, because you seen it and you participated in it and you knew it was a fraud and gave it your support. And once you gave it your support, you validated your support for the fraud, right? Once you validate your support for the fraud, you are now what's known as a willing participant. But when you didn't know, you was called an unwilling dupe, the fool's journey. The only remedy is to walk away from what the fraud is, which is um Faison Love, what up, though? So once you recognize, okay, these W-2s and W-4s they got me filing at work is deceptively luring me into supporting a foreign agency to financially exploit us, and I don't want to participate in that. So they got to give me two options. I don't want to do W-2. I don't want to do W-4. Let's see if they let you file a 1099 OID exempt status. So now you are doing something according to what you know on how to remedy the problem instead of just going along to get along. Yeah, just walk away. Go with your tribal name in the public. Always use your tribal name, because your birth name is the property of the dead system, which makes by birth, you are now a zombie. You the walking dead. You are a vessel in distress, lost at sea, deceased status, black in law. When they recovering you from the waters of maritime and admiralty, they are listing you on the records as being a recovered vessel at sea, stranded, lost, and deceased. And now they have to hand you over to the so-called ruling authority. And now, even though you are the walking dead, you are the ward of the state. That's given all of your life responsibilities for the state to financially support you. But watch how they renege on the bill. When you file to become a living being, they punish you by declaring that it's fraudulent that you did business as the straw man. But the living person is not responsible for the obligations of the non-living entity called the straw man. Nisara and Jasara is Dr. Kia Pruitt's domain. Anybody interested in understanding what Nisara and Jasara is and how it works, go to Rumble or YouTube, type in Dr. Kia Pruitt, and she have a whole lot of videos on both that's explaining the entirety of the Nisara and Jasara breakdown. Right, Dolo Ray? Uh, you have to put a claim in letting you know that you're living and take over your corporate enemy. No, that's how you support the fraud. But when you put the claim in with them, you submitting to their jurisdictional oversight of the prima facie case. You don't have the jurisdictional oversight, they do when you file a claim. The only way for you to have the uh, sui juris status is by, I mean, not the sui juris, I meant the de jure status. And instead of filing a claim, you make your statements according to tribal tradition in the public domain for other people that's similarly situated have the opportunity to discover the fraud you presenting and investigate it. And once they discover the fraud, you now have led them out of bondage. Yeah, so she lost a few channels, but she still got some videos up. Iron Bush, I don't have, I hope it wasn't too far because I didn't see it. I'm going back looking at every time no, that's a statement, that's not a question. Um, retype the question because I don't know where it's at. And I'll try to answer it. Dr. Kia Pruitt, Kia, last name Pruitt, Pruitt. Yes, you can have more than one totem animal, but one of them is going to be the primary or the lead, and you will be able to switch them lead according to the task that you're trying to perform that you need their assistance with. No, don't do the paperwork, Faison. That's a trap. The paperwork is the paper chain. Because when the paperwork is copywritten, yep, that's Dr. Kia Pruitt. She's the one with the Nasara Jasara information, the SESQE trusts, and all of that stuff. We got people in the community that's responsible for the part that they work on. I'm not, I don't work on the Nasara Jasara. I work on cracking the codes and putting in the public domain the redemption process that we following to recover the tribal lands, and it's all tribal land, back from the colonizers in lieu of the discovery of Plymouth Rock, commemorating the shipwreck called the Wreck of the Plymouth, which we know in the history books as the Mayflower. And we know that the military was ordered, I mean, under Donald J. Trump, the Navy ordered the docked vessel of the Admiralty jurisdiction commissioned by London to immediately exit the harbor of DC because in 2017, the tribes marched the totem pole to claim back what's known as the crime scene that was in an enclave, 10 square miles, that was the original crash site of the Plymouth. The lawsuit was filed in the secret through secret societies, and they went in to create the International Court of Criminal Justice in order to have a body in place to enforce the rights of all of the ones that's asserting a tribal jurisdictional right to recover from the contracts that they was never party to, and that most of the people in the contracts had nothing to do with the people of the land. And that's why none of the tribal leaders' names can be found in any of the treaties, which makes the treaties be predicated upon the fraud of an assumed identity of the organic people of the land or the identity being bestowed upon them by presidential order or presidential decree, which is not how the tribes of the land do business, right? Yo, yo, totem animal dolo, RJ, it whatever you doing, the totem animal that needs to give you the guidance takes the lead, and it can go within a split second. You can go from the lone wolf totem trotting across the vacant field to the full blown war bear, the grizzly war bear that left a grisly scene of guerrilla warfare on the land, and the land had a stain that scorched from the souls of those who suffered under the oppression and tyranny of the wicked who assumed the identity and tried to insert themselves in with the righteous, meaning the ones with the organic right to reclaim the earth, the ones with the right to assert tribal jurisdiction to restore the rest of the tribes to their tribal positions on the land. And this can be done globally by any of the tribal networks that's set up by landmass. It's just so happened that North and South Turtle Island and the islands are all under one grand matriarch, but we have under her a series of matriarchs across the land who works with the chief in order to solve the problems of the tribes in processing a new era as the day becomes online, so to speak. Then they awakening becomes the catalyst for the change to take place. So they all working together, even when they don't know they working together for the greatest good, because that's how they wire. In this one, I'll lose it while I'm trying to answer it. Okay, so this is Diane Bush is asking me, y'all. He said, I received information that the 3D will be closing out from 2039 to 2046, at which point the pole shift will occur. The pole shift will occur. Try this one. Essentially, moving to 3D from this realm, do you think the Anunnaki will have any part in this, or do you think at this point their DNA is so integrated with ours that we are them and they are us? Did they mix with us so they could survive, not for anything or benefit? Okay, so that's kind of a big question. It starts off about the ending of the 3D reality. The 3D reality will be here. It will be here, but we won't be operating from a three-dimensional paradigm. The five-dimensional paradigm is the paradigm of love and spirit. The 3D paradigm is the paradigm of density and um, aversion or repulsion is what it is. It's density and repulsion, and they can't not clash coming together. So in the 3D, it's just the construct that we live in. But the 5D is a non-physical location, right? As a non-physical location, when we ascend, we move from third dimension, physical matrix, energetically to dimension, spirit matrix. And we operate from the spirit matrix aspect in the 3D aspect. So the 3D physical reality is not going to just vaporize and we all 5D beings. It's not going to happen. But what's going to happen is in this 3D construct, we're going to absorb a frequency that's going to come from the earth after the sun and the earth get done answering all of the defects that the women's mitochondrial reported back to earth from scanning Y chromosomes and X chromosome in the same position of the children, right? And once they understand that the children are being birthed on higher frequency, now they're going to try to interfere with the frequency by undermining the child that's being born gifted. Anyway, so the 3D is not going to physically go anywhere, but we're going to change to a spirit-based reality we living in, as opposed to a dog eat dog, grab at what you can mentality. And then he said, at which point the pole shift will occur. The pole shift occurred, but it didn't occur in the manner that it normally happens, because Nibiru altered the trajectory and altered the whole system's effect on flipping the crust of the earth. Go to Google, type January 6 Earth core anomaly, and it's going to tell you that the core of the earth stopped spinning inside the earth. And this lasted, I think, a day or so, maybe 2 days. And then it reversed direction, right? So this was what would have been a catastrophe of a pole shift had the mantle and the crust flipped, as opposed to just the core. When it was just the core, it changed the pitch, tone, and frequency of Schumann resonance, which is the pulses that the earth sent out to the women's mitochondria to alert them, disaster coming, girl, get your family and go. And they can hear it like I'm talking now, like they can hear me. Once they tuned in on that level, then they begin to sync with similarly situated mitochondrial developed women in order to be the Tesla coils of this creation, right? So the pole shift was the shifting of the core this time instead of the mantle. The Anunnaki is not allowed to interfere right now because the war that was being waged on Earth that started on Nibiru over the war in heaven and landed on Earth, right? The fallen angels. Um, that has to play out as if there is no super beings or exceptionally gifted beings. It has to play out as we educate ourselves, the guys in the system, above the program that created the system. Once we mentally surpass the program that maintains the system, now we are in a position to alter the program to the benefit of the most people, right? Um, and do you think at this point their DNA is so integrated? Okay, so they have integrated DNA with the humans.